Hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest, 8-Second Gaming, and in today's video we are going to be talking about one of the most important things in Apex, and that is how to build your own team comp. Now there are a ton of videos around the internet, including some of the ones on our channel, where we tell you exactly what kind of team comps you'll want to play, but some people don't want to play those exact legends. They have a legend in mind that they want to play and they want to learn how to build around it, so don't worry, I've got you covered. But just quickly, if you guys are really looking to take your Apex skill to the next level, then you need to check out the GameLeap website right now. Over there we have top level guides including legend guides, gun guides, VOD reviews, and much more, so click the link in the description, pick yourself up a membership, and start to improve today. But okay, with that covered, let's hop back into things, and yes, we are going to be talking about how to build a team comp from start to finish. And even though some people might think that this only really applies to 3 stacks, it does also apply to solos and duos as well. Because even as a solo player, you can start to mesh and kind of flex your pick to work with what your teammates are picking. And as a duo, you can flex your picks as well around what your random is picking so that you have a more cohesive team comp. So what is the first step in actually building a team comp? Well, that is to decide your playstyle. Your playstyle heavily dictates what kind of legends you can run, because certain legends do well in other team comps and certain legends don't do well in certain team comps. For example, if you're going to be running an edge style of play where you're sitting on the edge of zone and just getting as many kills as you possibly can, taking as many fights as you possibly can, then you don't want a legend that just wants to set up in a building like Caustic. It just doesn't work very well, and you're going to be leaving a lot of holes in your team comp that you don't want to have. So when deciding your playstyle, just take a look at what kind of things you enjoy doing or what kind of things you are going to be doing in the game. And when you have that playstyle set out in mind, then you can start to build a team comp around that. Now there are 3 main playstyles that are in the game. There's Edge, like I mentioned before. There's Zone, where you just go as hard as you can to where you think that the game is going to end, set up a building, and wait to get as many placement points as you possibly can. Or there is a hybrid playstyle where you just do whatever kind of floats your boat. If you happen to be in the middle of zone, you are more than happy to take a building, wait for the end of the game, or if the zone is pulling away from you, you can play edge and you just don't mind that. Now, just as a little bit of a side note here, I don't really recommend that you play a hybrid style of play, because with that style of play, you're not going into a game with a solid game plan in mind. You don't really know what's going to happen. And from my own personal experience and helping other people get better at the game, if you don't go into it with a game plan, you can find yourself getting confused a lot. You don't really know what to do. It slows down your rotations, it slows down your decision making, and it can lead to a lot of RP loss. So that's just a little bit of a side thing. If you don't have to play hybrid, I highly suggest that you pick either an edge or a zone style of play. Now, once you decide what kind of play style you do want to have, this is where things start to get interesting, because that's when you can start to build your team comp. And a team comp consists of 3 main roles. You have your entry fragger, your secondary fragger, and your support. Now, your entry fragger is going to be the easiest one to decide, because there are only really 2 main ones in the game currently. You have Wraith and you have Bangalore. There are others, but those are the 2 main ones. Wraith is more for a zone style of play and Bangalore is more for an edge style of play. But again, when you're picking something like an entry fragger, you just have to think about what your team is going to do. If you're going to be playing zone, then Wraith is fantastic, because not only can she get her team safely from point A to point B, especially in late game situations, but she can also play extremely split from her team and hold multiple spots or hold a wide variety of options for her team. But on the opposite end, if you take a look at Bangalore, she's a lot more aggressive. She likes to be fighting. She likes to do a lot of those highly aggro plays. So that is perfect for edge, because edge teams are going to be getting into as many fights as they possibly can. So you can see how you can start to kind of fill those gaps in while you are thinking about your playstyle. Now, next up we have the secondary fragger, and this is going to be the hardest role to fill because of how many secondary fraggers there actually are in the game. And secondary fragger is a little bit of a weird role because it can be filled by so many different options. You have so many different things at your disposal. It's actually a little bit overwhelming for some people, and that's why a lot of people actually do opt to look at something like a set team comp, because they don't really know what to do with the secondary fragger role. But as a general rule of thumb, basically every single legend can be a secondary fragger. Some just do it better than others. But even these guys can be broken down a little bit more to help you kind of understand what you want to have. If you want to have more information in fights, then look to get a secondary fragger that scans for you, something like a Seer, a Bloodhound, or even a Crypto. If you want somebody that can play a little bit more solo, maybe take some off angles, do something like that, then maybe look at something like a Revenant or even a Loba. If you want to make it so that the enemy team has a very hard time playing certain spots, have somebody with a lot of utility that they can use like a Fuse or a Mad Maggie to make it so that the enemy team has the hardest possible time playing one certain area. Again, it just boils down to what you as a team need or what kind of playstyle you want to have, and then you can start to eliminate legends based off of that. And if you still can't figure out what kind of legend you want to have, then go from the opposite end and start eliminating legends. Like if you want to have a zone playstyle, eliminate the legends that are more aggressive. If you're just going to be sitting in zone all game, then you don't really need a highly aggressive legend to really help your team in those fights because you're not going to be getting into them as much. So legends that are just super aggressive like Fuse, Horizon, Revenant, stuff like that, you don't really need them because they're not going to be really shining in just sitting in a building. But something like a Crypto who just wants to sit on his drone the entire time, scan some information for your team, and get a good knowledge base is fantastic at zone because that's exactly what he wants to do. And on the flip side, if you want to play Edge, think about legends that just want to be in fights constantly. And then think about what you and your team need, what kind of holes do you have in your team fights, what kind of situations do you find yourself in, and start to fill it based off of that. And now we finally moved into the last role, which is going to be the support role. My personal role, this is the one that I like the most, this is the one that I actually play on my own teams when I do ALGS and stuff like that. So it's actually one that I have the most experience on. But some people think that support is a lot more complicated than it actually is. Support is probably the second easiest after entry fragger just because of how bare bones it actually is when picking what you need. Again, boil it down to what is your playstyle. I'm going to sound like a broken record here because I just really need to hammer it into your heads. If you want to play zone, then pick up a legend that has a lot of control on them. Something like a Catalyst, a Caustic, or a Watson. Something that can lock down an area for your team and give you tons of real estate to play. But on the flip side, if you want to play Edge, you got to think of something that wants to be highly aggressive. Somebody that can help your team reset fights, somebody that can be a little bit more up close and personal, something like a Newcastle is fantastic at Edge. And I also do want to point something out here, just because they have the support role in game doesn't mean that they are actually a support, and vice versa. Just because they're not a support in game doesn't mean that they actually are not a support. The actual physical role on the character in game, like skirmisher, stuff like that, is not actually very dependent on what kind of role they have in terms of a team comp. So don't think just because you're playing support on your team, you have to use a support character in game. There are multiple different options for you. And if you're looking for an absolute cheat code on support, just pick up Newcastle. Newcastle is such a strong legend because he is a jack of all trades, and it's why support is just such an easy role because most of the time supports can kind of fit into any team comp. Now, if you guys are still slightly confused and want a little bit more information, then come check out one of my streams sometime over on Twitch TV/8secondgaming. You can see how me and my team build team comps and kind of adapt them on the fly to what we need or what we're lacking. And you can also ask some questions about your own personal team comps. And on top of that, if you guys are interested in staying up to date with the latest and greatest Apex Legends tips, tricks, and news, don't forget to smash the like and subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Once again, Mate Second Gaming. I'll see you guys in the next one.